Hi everyone, good afternoon. This is Kristen with IngramSpark. Welcome to our webinar, The Value and Impact of Book Reviews, featuring Howard Lovy and our very own Robin Cutler. Howard and Robin will be going through a bunch of different information that will help you with your book reviews and give you a head start on that topic. But before I turn you over to them, I just wanted to let you know a few things really quickly. We are live tweeting the event, and you can join in the conversation. If you look at your console builder, you'll see like the actual presentation, and then to the left there should be a little box that shows the tweets or where you can tweet. If it's not there, there's a bar at the bottom where there is a little Twitter icon. You can click on that and it'll pop up, and you can start tweeting and join the conversation on Twitter. If you have any questions at any time, we do have some lovely folks here that are answering them real time, and then also we'll be going over them at the end for 10 minutes where Howard and Robin can actually answer them and everyone can hear it out loud. There's a printable version of the presentation that can be found in the bottom left-hand corner of your console builder, and you can download that and print it out for future use. And then also we record the webinar, so it will be emailed to you in a few days, and then also it will be on our YouTube channel where you can share and have your friends and family engage with us on YouTube. And then we do this every month. We have a bunch of different industry experts on throughout the year, and every month you can catch us usually around the third week of the month. Follow us on our social media channels to keep updated on that, or subscribe to our newsletter, and you'll always know when you can listen to a webinar or even view them after. So that's all I have to say. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Robin. Robin is the director of IngramSpark. She is amazing. I don't know. We don't know what we would do without her. Her expertise and leadership is just allowed IngramSpark to be the great thing that it is. And I'm happy to turn it over to her so we can get the webinar started.
Well, thank you, Kristen, and thanks everyone for joining us today. This is Robin Cutler, and I hope I've gotten to meet some of you in some of the conferences and talks that I give around indie publishing. Most recently, one of the people that I met at a conference is our speaker today, Howard Lovy, who is the executive editor of Foreword Reviews. And Howard is just one of those people that seems to be at the forefront of what's going on in independent publishing today and with indie authors, and we're just thrilled to have him here with us today. As some of you may know, and we've done a couple of sessions where we talk about book reviews, but we haven't focused in on book reviews before, the importance of them in terms of marketing your books. And so we're just thrilled to have Howard with us to really kind of bring us up to speed on why book reviews are important and you know what we can do to facilitate that. So welcome, Howard.
Well, thank you very much, Robin. I appreciate that introduction. I'll turn this the slide back to you because I wanted to talk about you for a second. I'm really happy to be working with IngramSpark. And I first met Robin at Book Expo America in Chicago last spring, and I saw how she was treated as kind of a rock star among independent authors. IngramSpark is a great program for indie authors, and as we all know, indie authors are hungry, have something to say, and as I saw in BEA in Chicago, they're among the most eager kinds of authors to learn. So about me, I'm executive editor of Foreword Reviews, based in beautiful Traverse City, Michigan, where I supervise and assign and edit the work of more than 100 freelance. Where am I? Am I out there? There we go. Sorry.
There you are.
Freelance reviewers. There I am. Freelance reviewers, editors, bloggers devoted to books released by independent authors. I set the style, tone, and voice for Foreword Reviews. My background is in journalism, which very much influences the way I approach book reviews and the indie publishing industry in general, and I'll talk more about that later. First, a brief outline on what is Foreword Reviews. As you can see in this multi-legged creature, Foreword Reviews has grown in the last 18 years into more than just a book review magazine, with more and more products all aimed at one goal: supporting independent authors and publishers. Foreword Reviews is a quarterly print magazine, and we're about to go bi-monthly in 2017. Also a daily website devoted to reviewing books from independent authors, ranging from self-published work and small publishing houses to larger publishers and university presses. We review everything except the big five publishers. Our print magazine is advertiser supported, and we also offer a paid review service called Clarion Reviews, where authors get the same quality of independent, professional, honest review as in the magazine. And we also have dedicated email newsletters that feature interviews with publishers and authors, a newsletter just for librarians, and blogs, features, analyses, and book reviews on our growing website. And through the Indie Press Collective, we represent indie authors at domestic and international trade shows. So, first of all, who reviews? And there are two different kinds of review publications. I'm going to give you an overview first of the trade journals and what goes into their reviews and their role in the overall ecosystem. The major trade review journals are Foreword Reviews, Booklist, Kirkus Reviews, Library Journal, Publishers Weekly, and School Library Journal. Those are the major ones, and they review books at no cost and publish their reviews as close to each book's publication date as possible. And from journal to journal, the reviews differ in length and style, though the majority publish short synopses of the books, while a few run more critical reviews. At Foreword Reviews, we do more than synopses. In fact, we require no more than one short paragraph of synopsis. Instead, we evaluate the book's quality. And just a quick note regarding what a trade journal is, as opposed to a consumer-facing review publication such as the Sunday New York Times Book Review. Trade journals exist to help librarians and booksellers identify the best books to stock on their shelves. They try to time the publishing of the reviews they print a little before the release of the book to consumers. So for this reason, trade journals need to see galleys or review copies of books as far ahead of their publication dates as possible. Consumer publications don't require as much time. And you might notice that the tone and length of trade review journals reviews are slightly different than consumer-facing ones. Librarians and booksellers need an unbiased opinion from a trustworthy source. They're making decisions not only for themselves, but for the institutions they represent. So it's incredibly important that trade journal reviews be objective, honest, and to the point. Consumer-facing reviews might reveal a little bit more about the individual reviewer's biases and quirks. Our magazine is distributed free to booksellers and librarians, but is also available at Barnes & Noble and Books A Million, and we are 100% advertiser supported. So that's basically what the trade review journals do. There's a separate category, relatively recent, of paid reviews, and some of the publications are our own Foreword Clarion Reviews service. Kirkus has their own called Kirkus Discovery, and Blue Ink does only independent authors, only self-published. PW Select and Indie Reader. That's not all of them, but those are the major ones. Let me say a few things about paid reviews. There are credible, honest ones, and unfortunately some that are a little shady. And here's an example. A few months ago, we were checking out the comments section in our reviews when we noticed that one review in particular was getting peppered with comments. Somebody was pasting so-called reviews all over the comments section. I researched it a bit more, and I saw that all the reviewers were affiliated with a site called Fiverr.com, which hosts ads for people who will perform various services for $5 a pop. And it's actually a great site. At one time, while I was a freelancer, I had someone help me with some website design using that. But for authors, essentially authors can pay them $5 to write a canned, quote, positive review of their book and plaster it all over Amazon and Goodreads. When I saw that, I immediately slammed the door on them. That's not what we do. I'll explain more about our standards later in this presentation, but for us, Clarion reviews are no different from our unpaid trade journal reviews. In fact, they're written by the same reviewers and edited by the same editors. The fee simply assures that you'll get a review. It pays for our reviewers and editors' time. So the publications you see here are a few of the major ones. Foreword was the first. We were criticized for doing it, and then eventually everybody else followed. But there's still a stigma attached to it that we are trying to combat. In the minds of many, if money changes hands, the review is tainted. End of story. And the way to fight that perception is through the work itself. And this is what I spend a good chunk of my day doing every day. I work with our writers and editors carefully to make sure that the paid Clarion reviews are honest, independent, and objective.
Hey, Howard. So the
Yes.
list that you showed that you had there, that's been a standard list for reviews for, I would say, the past 20 years, wouldn't you say?
For the trade reviews?
Yes.
Or yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. And, booksellers and librarians, they know who they can trust. And over the years, these have risen to the top.
Yeah. So we haven't lost review media like in some time. If this is the same standard list we've had, for the past 20 years or so. I think what we have lost in review media is probably the different major newspapers that used to feature, review sections no longer do that.
Right. Sadly, they were the first to be cut when newspapers were cut. I have been told by some librarians that there are a few bloggers that they carefully follow, whose opinions have sort of risen to the top. But primarily, those are the trade review journals that, they've been around for a while, and Foreword has been around for 18 years. So, what is the value of a book review? And two words explain that: librarians and booksellers. Librarians are faced with budget crises all over the country, indeed all over the world. So they're less likely to take chances on ordering books by authors or publishers they've never heard of. Sorry, but they know Harry Potter will be in demand, so that comes first. In the words of our librarian blogger Anna Call, quote, ordering librarians are obligated to follow a set of collection development policies that prevent the place from going into the red and becoming a book warehouse. So that's the bad news. The good news, Anna adds, is that, quote, luckily, nothing cuts through policy red tape faster than a nice, solid review. She adds, I don't know a single librarian who doesn't rely to some extent on Library Journal, Publishers Weekly, Kirkus, and our very own Foreword Reviews to develop their collections. One thing I add, and here's where my background and biases as a news person comes into play, is the news value of an authoritative review. I became executive editor of Foreword Reviews in 2013, but I had spent the previous quarter century as a journalist for local newspapers, large metropolitan dailies, and specialty publications, covering everything from religion to science, technology, and business. And the many beats I covered has transferred well into an understanding of many genres of books. So I know how to talk business, science, religion, history, current events, and I know what the audience is for each of these genres. And a good review will bring out the news value of your book. It not only hint at what happens in the book, but more importantly, puts into succinct words what the book is really about. What is the underlying message? What are the lessons? How can the book be applied to something newsworthy that's going on right now? And with a review that truly gets it, gets the message, an author can tailor a news pitch to their local newspaper, local news channel, special interest magazine, or even national media. There's something authoritative about an author, especially a local author, who has studied and written something about an issue that's in the news. And that goes even for fiction authors. Another big advantage to getting a review is, from one of these respected publications, is the licensing to wholesalers. And getting a review with Foreword, Kirkus, PW, Library Journals, and others as opposed to just having bloggers review it or fans on Amazon and Goodreads, is that we license the reviews to wholesalers such as Ingram, Baker & Taylor, Cengage, Bowker, and EBSCO. It's these databases where librarians go shopping. They can be much more valuable than likes and follows on social media, although I wouldn't underestimate those either.
Yeah, not today. Well, one of the things
right, exactly.
just to point out is so that our listeners understand. So what happens is when there's a review done by these trade publications, they actually are fed into the Ingram database and go into the Ingram catalog. So exactly what you said, Howard, where, you know, it becomes sort of a catalog, sort of a shopping catalog for librarians and booksellers is exactly right. And
right.
Those reviews will actually help a book surface, you know, within the Ingram catalog itself. So that's exactly right.
Right, and that's priceless in terms of discoverability.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also kind of the why a lot of our reviewers are shorter than you'd see in a consumer publication, because librarians are busy people, and they want to cut to the chase and know exactly what the book is about in the first paragraph. So some questions we ask before we review. And the picture you see here is Nat Sutherland, our managing editor, in his natural habitat, going through stacks and stacks of galleys. As he and our other editors go through the galleys, we ask ourselves a few questions. Is the title original? Are there typos and cliches in the back cover copy? Does the author have the credentials to cover the subject? Are the copyright page, table of contents, index, and other front and back matter elements professionally presented? Does the author bring something fresh to perhaps a tired topic? Have we reviewed the publisher before? We also strive not to review books from the same publisher from one issue of Foreword to the next, so we can cover as many indie presses as possible. And does the author have expertise on the topic? Is it written by a dilettante with a pet theory, an academic who has studied the issue, a journalist who has researched it extensively? The author bio should be clear enough to tell us this. And is the book unique and innovative? A few years ago, I met with a literary agent, and although today I don't remember everything she told me, the one phrase that stuck out in my mind was, make it counterintuitive, surprise people. Take something everybody thinks they know and turn it on its head. For example, The World is Flat by Thomas Friedman, or Freakonomics, The Hidden Side of Everything by Stephen J. Dubner and Stephen Levitt. It doesn't have to be in the title, but maybe in the book summary. I don't know about other editors, but when I'm going through a big stack of galleys, I love to be surprised and challenged and made to think. For Foreword Reviews, specifically, we ask whether it's from an independent publisher, since that's all we do. And by independent, we mean anything from self-published to small and big indie houses to university presses, anything but the big five. And last, is it a good read? I usually open to the beginning and just start reading. If I've gone a couple of pages and I don't notice the time has passed, that tells me that I'm hooked. I'll just add that we select
Howard,
about 100. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Who are the big
That's
five?
all right.
You mentioned them a couple of times, so just in case our participants don't know.
Let me see if I can get them. Hachette, Random House.
Simon and Schuster.
I didn't know. I think I'd be clear. Simon and Schuster. Penguin. I guess Penguin and Random House are the same thing. They used to be the big six.
HarperCollins.
HarperCollins. Thank you. Yeah, HarperCollins. Oh, Macmillan is the other one.
Macmillan, and that's morally accurate.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right, and they all have, it's tricky because they all have subsidiaries and imprints and imprints upon imprints, and you have to follow the trail sometimes and see who the ultimate owner is. You know, these days it's getting a little trickier to define what is an indie. But I think, you know, basically if it's a huge giant corporation with a lot of money behind it, then it's probably part of the big five. You know, and we've heard arguments where, well, why do you do university presses? They're pretty big too. They're big, but they don't have the same kind of pocketbook as say Simon and Schuster.
No, they don't have the machine to get a book into the marketplace.
Right. Yeah, they don't have the same kind of machine behind them.
I will say to your list here, Howard, one of the things that struck me, and one of the things that I talk about a lot to authors is your second bullet here about professionally presented. So that really matters, like in the very early days when you're trying to get a review, to make sure that you've had the book properly and professionally edited before you send it anywhere. And oftentimes I see where it's kind of instead of doing that work first, they're doing it last. And so I'm glad that you have this on your sheet here about how important it is.
Oh yeah, it's extremely important. People like me who understand that you're working on a budget and know what it's like to be an indie author, I can look past it sometimes, but most don't. If it doesn't look professional, it makes a huge impact, and you won't even get read. So yeah, I'll just add that we select about 160 new pre-publication books to be reviewed out of about 1,200 or so galleys. So there are so many indie books to choose from that we decided that we're only printing recommendations, only the good books. In fact, if we send it to the reviewer and they decide it's not magazine quality, they can let us know and we'll give them a kill fee. So publishers absolutely need a kill fee. If our initial impression is it's a great book, then we send it to the reviewer and they said, not so great, we won't review the book.
Oh, okay.
So because there's so much to choose from, we decided that in our print magazine, these are only our recommendations. You're not going to see a bad review in our magazine. And publishers absolutely need to get review copies to us as soon as possible, ideally 3 or 4 months ahead of the publication date. We understand that galleys and review copies are in the editing and design stage, so they don't need to be perfectly edited and designed. We're also fine with manuscripts on an 8.5 by 11-inch paper. PDF and ebook submissions are also fine, although some of us still have an enduring preference for something you can physically touch. And that's, I don't mind. Pardon me?
Print is still your primary preference.
That's still the primary preference, yeah. Although that's changing a little bit. If you ask me, I don't mind ebooks so much, but Matt is more old school, and there's still something about seeing, physically holding something with you, carrying it around with you, pacing around, and reading it, So some best practices to think about when you send things in to us. Less is more. Review journals only need a great tip sheet and the book. Just a 1-page black and white tip sheet listing the title, author, publisher, price, binding, page count, ISBN, genre, short summary. When picking out books, that's all we need. Flashy tricks won't work and usually only annoy us. We really do go through and consider everything we receive. How should you follow up with reviewers? Don't. Just be confident that your book arrives safely and it's being considered. We're not able to give updates or answer questions about whether a book will be reviewed, and you'll be contacted if the book is chosen. If the book cover, the tip sheet, and the book itself are captivating enough, that's really all we need. Now, separately, I recently launched sort of more products online to go with our book reviews. I pick a few books, authors, or publishers for coverage in our blogs and news features or interviews. And I always interview an author or a publisher in our weekly newsletter, Foreword This Week, which goes out to thousands of subscribers. And my decision on who to interview are based on a number of factors, including relevance to something being discussed in the news, a trend in publishing, and a new innovative publisher. These decisions are based on some factors authors have no control over. But it's important to stay alert to what's happening in the news right now. What's trending? What issues are being discussed in the news? Is something going viral now that is being addressed in your book? And if so, I don't mind you sending me a quick email telling me that your book is relevant. Be careful, though. There's a fine line between opportunism and exploitation. I remember a year or so ago, a few authors were heavily mocked and criticized on social media for using Robin Williams' suicide as an excuse to draw attention to themselves. So be sensitive. It's not about you. It's about the topic with which you have expertise. And you'll find that a lot of local media are looking for local experts on a topic. So just be aware of what's happening. And be quick. Cut to the chase. From the very first sentence of your news release, there needs to be information that you are certain an editor would be interested in. I'm probably a little unusual in the business because I actually read every news release that crosses my desk. Not everybody does, though. And last, how should you use your review? Any way you want. On your book jacket, on your promotional material, your blog, your social media channels, your book trailer. Hire one of those airplane skywriters you see above beaches, any way you'd like. Just do one thing. Attribute it to Foreword Reviews and spell their name right. It's F-O-R-E-W-O-R-D, not F-O-R-W.
People misspell Foreword all the time, don't they?
I know. They get us confused with, there's another publication called The Foreword, but we're forward as in the forward to a book. Get it? So,
yeah, and I would add here, as far as the use of your review, if you're using a service or a distributor like IngramSpark, whenever you get a review, you need to make sure, and I pound this all the time in almost every talk I give, make sure you update the metadata that you've already provided on your book previously by adding, each review as you get it to the metadata that then goes out into the Ingram catalog, and from there it goes to Amazon and Barnes & Noble and goes, to the world. So it's really important that you keep your metadata updated, especially when you get a good review and an endorsement.
Right. Yeah, that's a very good point. Exactly. Yeah. So a little bit about what I tell our own reviewers on what makes for a good review. I think it's important because I believe in nuance, and I don't believe in the thumbs up or thumbs down approach to critique. I don't think there's such a thing as a good book or a bad book, thumbs up, thumbs down, but there's room for more subtlety in book reviews. And we have basically the same standards for our paid Clarion reviews and our reviews in the magazine, except we keep in mind the audience might be a little different. In the magazine, the readers are librarians, booksellers, and consumers looking for something new to read. For Clarion, especially for maybe some of the lower quality books, the readers are primarily the authors themselves. So a few guidelines that we use. We enforce a snark-free zone. We ban what we call author assassination. Some books, it's difficult for reviewers to refrain from clever sarcasm or cutting insults, and there's nothing that offends a reviewer more than bad writing. So I advise our reviewers to write the sarcastic piece, first the day the author's parents ever taught them the alphabet, get it all out of their system, then delete it, and write a critique that informs the author how and why the writing doesn't work and where perhaps it does. And we don't hammer away at the same critique over and over again. Many of the books we work with are from first-time authors. They have little or no editorial support system and have not developed the hardened shell of a professional writer. So who exactly are we benefiting by being insulting? Many authors even thank us for critical reviews because they learn something. Some of them rewrite the book based on our critique, and then we see their book improved again. And here's one thing that I emphasize over and over again, and a lot of my writers can tell you that I do this ad nauseum. We don't do book reports. We're not just a plot synopsis. What authors and readers want is a complete, constructive critique of all aspects of the work. The authors already know what they've written. They don't need a plot synopsis spit back at them. So we limit synopses to about one paragraph, and the rest is all critique. It's a hard and fast rule. And even for the great books we review in the magazine, I don't think readers want every plot point outlined in the book. I know I don't. It's why sometimes I avoid reading a review of a book that I know I'm going to buy because I don't want anything spoiled. And we give a full objective review. The hardest thing we do to do at times is to read views that you personally disagree with or graphic material that offends you. What we do though, is review the entire book in a nuanced way. Who's the target audience? Aside from a disagreement with the conclusion or presumptions, who does the reviewer think, what does the reviewer think about the quality of the writing, the documentation, the research? Also, we match the genre with a reviewer who understands the topic. For example, our science fiction reviewers won't dismiss a book because faster than light space travel is impossible. Or our romance reviewers won't immediately dismiss an unrealistic love scene. So what you're getting in this presentation is the way I approach reviews and the way I train my writers and editors. I can't tell you exactly how other review editors make their decisions, so results may vary. However, we have a unique mission that the others don't. We focus only on indies, and that's all we do. So these guidelines I'm giving you are based on specific needs of indie authors and publishers. We recently decided to put everything we do into concise words, and this is why I go to work every day, and I'm proud of what we came up with. We believe in the power of books to change the world, that all voices should be heard, and all publishers should find their readers. Everybody has a story to tell, everybody. And the self-published book, despite its surge in respectability of late, is still derided as vanity press by self-important literary critics. I think that attitude is very 20th century and has no place in the modern publishing business. I'm a storyteller, so let me tell you a quick story. When I was 15 years old, my grandfather, a Hungarian refugee from the Holocaust, was writing his life story. He asked me to edit it for him and fix his broken English. Even back then, I knew I wanted to be a writer. My grandpa's book recalls his childhood as a Jew in Hungary and his escape from Europe to make a new life in America. After it was completed, my grandpa showed me a letter he received from a literary agent. She wrote that while his story of escape from the Holocaust had potential, there needed to be some sex in it if she wanted to sell it to any publisher. So because of the existing gatekeepers whose job it was primarily to prevent the publication of most books, my grandpa's voice was silenced. And one of my current projects is to rethink that book for my late grandfather and see if I can get a version of his story published. Today, we don't need to sit and wait by the phone for an agent or publisher to call. And I would argue that even the poor quality books have something to contribute to the historical record. Today, I've been an editor long enough to see the rough first drafts of work from many great writers. And I see atrocious spelling, questionable grammar, disjointed ideas. A great editor can take these raw materials and mold them into great books. Lack of money or lack of backing from a big publisher does not make what an author has to say less valuable or valid. The preservation of thought, of experience, no matter the flaws in the writing, are worth it. However, and this is a big however, not very many other review editors take this view. It's difficult to look beyond bad editing, bad design, bad promotion. So prove the big publishers wrong and do it professionally. Get an editor, get a designer, get a beta reader who is not afraid to give you an honest appraisal. In the end, you'll feel better about the work, and review editors like me will be more receptive to giving your ideas the attention they deserve.
Oh, Howard, that's so bad about your grandfather's book.
Yeah.
And I know where we can help you put that book out into the marketplace when you're ready.
I think I'd like to talk to you about that. Sure, absolutely. Yeah, it's too bad my grandpa didn't live to see that day. But he kind of left it as an heirloom for the family. But there's some very important and interesting things in there. But no sex, unfortunately. A few more things about our mission, and this is again, my own quirks and biases. I've been a journalist for 30 years, beginning my career at small newspapers and working my way up to larger newspapers and magazines. And something happened about midway through my career. A lot of people stopped reading newspapers. However, they did not stop seeking news and information. Things changed. And seeing how things changed and which news organizations adapted and which failed has informed my coverage of the publishing industry today. Also, being a journalist trained me in objectivity. Objectivity does not mean you have no opinions. It means you respect your readers enough so that you do a thorough job of reviewing a book so that you don't misrepresent what the book is about to suit your own agenda or opinions. Stay true to the book, and it's one of the many things I make sure our reviewers do. And the last point that I want to make is sort of the spirit that guides us at Foreword Reviews, and I use the term indie spirit a lot when I talk about our mission at Foreword. What it means to me is we don't care what the cool kids are doing. We don't participate in groupthink. We're not influenced by the flavor of the day. It means making sure all voices are heard, including the minority opinion, those who break the rules but still have something to say. When I was a journalist, those were the stories I like to tell. And here's a story that I told Robin when we met at BEA in Chicago. I used to be a business technology reporter, and I covered the Detroit Auto Show every year. And my dirty little secret was that I never really was very interested in cars. It was technology and innovation that excited me. What will come next? That was worth writing about. So I interviewed the electric vehicle startups and battery technology companies that were exiled to the basement of Cobo Hall. I always look not just for the minority opinion, but for the people who get it, who understand what it is the industry is trying to achieve in the long run. Who is looking down the road? And over the years, I watched as those electric vehicle innovators moved from the basement to the main floor of the show. And Robin told me that it's a perfect analogy for independent publishing. She said, quote, 3 years ago when we launched IngramSpark, we were in the basement of Javits, and now we're on the main floor attached to the huge Ingram booth. Independent authors and publishers, they are the innovators right now in publishing, and I can't think of a better, more exciting story to cover. Thank you. That's all I have.
Well, you're such an inspiration, Howard, and I love the mission and the vision of Foreword that you've kind of laid out here. And I totally agree with you that it's the indie authors that are kind of driving the whole industry and are getting, the respect and recognition that they deserve for their work. And you're
Absolutely.
a big part of that with what you do with Foreword.
Good.
Well, thank you so much. This has been really, really great. I'm a big fan of Foreword and all the work that you guys have been doing. Even before it was the cool kids were the indie kids. You guys were out there being the voice and giving indie published content, a place. And so you should be really, really applauded for all that you've done these past 18 years, you said.
18. Good, thank you.
Years. So I think we've got some good questions coming in, right? Huh? Yes, so one of the things I want to make sure everyone, at least if you're an IngramSpark user, one of the values that we're always doing is to be able to offer our customers special incentives and discounts on other services. And so we actually have negotiated with Foreword and have a way that you can get a Foreword review at a discounted price. So one of the things that we will be doing after this webinar is providing a link for where you can go to get that information to get a discounted price off a Foreword review. So be looking for that information here when we send out the link to the recorded webinar. So Kristen, are there questions that we should get to, or and I'm putting up the contact information to Howard Lovy here, who has been really gracious to provide his email and his phone number. And
I actually do answer my email too.
and also it'd be a great idea to follow him on Twitter and on LinkedIn as well. So here's Howard's information, and then here's information about IngramSpark. If you're not already an IngramSpark customer, this is how you can follow the conversation and make contact with us at IngramSpark.
And we also, I was going to bring up, we have an amazing blog that has multiple experts blogging with all kinds of great valuable information for the self-publishing journey. And Howard actually just posted a blog for us on how to become newsworthy. And I know he brought up a little bit of that in the conversation that we had today, but if you're curious about learning more on that, the blog was posted, looks like this week, probably on, last week on Thursday.
Okay. All right.
So you can find it on our blog. Yeah, it's IngramSpark.com/blog.
So we should include that link too.
We will put that in the email too.
That'd be great.
You'll receive that.
Great.
And
I don't know if you gave it my original headline for that was nobody cares about your book, but they do care about what you have to say or something like that. So my point was
a little bit, Howard.
Yeah. Okay. But that's the point that I'm trying to make. That to really stand out, you have to do a little more to make it newsworthy, to make it stand out. We care about your book, and you care about your book, but to make everybody else care about your book, you have to show how it's relevant. Good.
Right. Awesome.
The power of reviews, Howard, we here at IngramSpark, we published a guide to IngramSpark that came out about a year ago. And basically it walks our customers through how they set up a title and the importance of all the metadata that they provide on their book. And we actually sent the book out for review as any kind of publication. And we actually got a sort of an academic review on it, and it was like one of the most thrilling things that has happened to me since I've been here at Ingram, is to actually get a review on our own sort of indie publication. So that was kind of interesting. Okay, so let's get to some questions.
I was going to say, how did the academics treat your book?
They actually highly recommended it. Even outside of IngramSpark, it provides a lot of useful information about just metadata in general and in book production, right. And how do libraries, a lot of what you talked about today about how libraries and booksellers make decisions about which books they want to purchase and collect.
Right.
So it was a good review, so we were really thrilled.
Okay,
and
good.
In case anyone listening right now is interested in getting a hold of that guide, you can download a sneak peek at ingramspark.com/guide, or you can go into any of your local bookstores or libraries and ask them to order it for you. Or if you become an IngramSpark customer, you will receive a free copy of it. So that's all the ways that you can get your hands on the guide. And I'm going to push us into questions because we have a ton of really good questions. So I'll start by asking Howard and Robin, how do we best use a stellar review? I received the best Amazon review a writer could ever wish for, and how do I use that effectively?
Do you want to take that first, Howard?
Well, again, I guess it depends on the genre and who you want to get to review your book. I mean, who you want to buy your book. What I would do is send it, the best quotes to the news media that might want to write about you and cover you. Like this isn't just my new book, but these people agree that this is a great book for X, Y reason, and to try to make it kind of snowball from there.
Yeah, and I'll say the same thing I always say, which is update your metadata. You can put in IngramSpark now. There's a metadata field called reviews and endorsements. So you can put it into that field. You can also include quotes into the description of your book as well, and into the book itself. One of the things I talk a lot about, obviously, because Ingram's print-on-demand business is such a big part of what IngramSpark is, but one of the great things about doing your book with print-on-demand is that when you do get reviews, you can actually update the back cover, with blurbs from those reviews, the interior of the book as well. You'll see where traditional publishers always have, praise that's included in the interior of the book. So that's one of the great things you can do when you use print-on-demand is just update the book itself.
Right. And again, I guess I'd also emphasize that there are different, I'm sure there are great reviewers on Amazon, and maybe there's some star Amazon reviewers, but in my mind, it's if something is stellar according to the New York Times Book Review, Kirkus Reviews, Foreword Reviews, as opposed to the author's mother on Amazon.
It doesn't carry the same weight that a trade review. Yes, that's
right.
true.
Great. Moving on to another one. What is a good time frame to get your book in for review before being published? Is 6 months good? 3 months? What's that time frame look like?
About 3 to 4 months is fine for us. That gives enough time for us to make the selection process, send it out to reviewers, and print the magazine. Our time is getting shorter and shorter because after 2017 we're going bi-monthly, so we're able to take pre-publication reviews maybe 2 months in advance. But
that's
the sooner
great
the better.
News. Yeah, that's great news.
We're going bi-monthly. And we're adding special editions on the off months. So essentially we're going monthly. And that sort of says what's happening with the indie book world right now, that we can do that. There's a huge demand for what we do.
Oh, yeah, I would say so. That's really fantastic news, Howard.
Let's see here. Are the trade and paid reviewers amenable to reviewing children's picture books?
Absolutely. Well,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we love reviewing children's picture books, and if you look at our magazine, we've got a nice, beautiful spread. Of course, they usually have the best illustrations, and we review more of those than we do in a lot of other genres, just because librarians especially love children's picture books. That's where a lot of their customers come from. They're great for story times, great for getting people into the library, and they're looking for these for what's next. So that's one of the most popular parts of our magazine is what we have to say about children's books and young adult too.
Great. What can a publisher do to get reviews if it's already published? For example, the publisher drops the marketing ball. Also, in today's virtual bookshelves, why is so much advance time necessary? Well, we kind of covered that last part, but
so what if the book's already been published, Howard? Is it done, or is there anything that an indie author can do to get the attention of like a forward?
Well, for that, there's Foreword Clarion reviews, and you can we can take post-publication reviews or books for that. Sometimes also if there's a new edition of an older book, if you've made significant changes or improvements, we'll consider it again as pre-publication. But primarily, if it's already been published, we'll still review it for a paid Clarion review.
So kind of tagging on. Go ahead, Howard.
I'm sorry. And again, we offer the same quality review, and we use many or most of the same writers and the same editors, so you'll get the same kind of professional job with our paid Clarion reviews.
And this question kind of I guess it's a more clarifying one. You had mentioned making like a revision to that book and then republishing it, so that would count as like second editions or third editions.
It depends on how much it's changed, right, Howard?
Yeah. I mean, occasionally, we've done this before. They'll give us a Clarion review. We review it. We notice a few things. We're not a book editing service, so people aren't going to submit it to us for a full, line edit on their book. But if there are major things that are addressed, they'll send it back to us, and for a discount, we'll review it again for them.
Howard, one of the things you didn't mention as a benefit of getting a review that I would think is probably true is that I would think Foreword might be a source for, the what we call the traditional publishers, like the big five that we mentioned, to actually kind of go and, see what, what the reviews are and possibly take on an author based on a review.
Absolutely, yeah. I know that's happening. I've actually seen job listings from the big five asking, people for employees. I think Penguin Random House does this, where they scour the self-published authors and pick out what's exciting. In fact, I think they're also self-publishing arms of the big five. So they definitely do that. The most famous example, of course, is The Martian, which obviously became a huge success and a blockbuster movie as well. Originally self-published.
And that was self-published?
That was self-published originally. Yep, picked up by a big publisher and then straight to screen. Yeah, it's sort of like telling.
I knew 50 Shades of Grey was a good example too.
yeah. It's possible. It happens, and there are services. I think in some of the self-publishing outfits. I think Author Solutions does this now, where you can actually pitch, or they'll pitch it for you to. Say Netflix or Showtime or Hulu, some of those to go directly to TV. But it's sort of like telling your kid who plays basketball that someday you'll be an NBA star. Most will not have Matt Damon play your lead. This is not going to happen.
Yeah.
However, more and more big five publishers are picking up on self-published work.
We have quite a few more here. So how about novellas? Does Foreword Reviews do novellas?
Yes. That's the short answer, yes.
How much?
We review novellas.
Okay.
So there's not a length, limitation, right?
No, there's not. We've done everything from.
Go ahead.
We've done everything from 5-page children's board books to 1,000-page huge manifestos. So and everything in between.
What's the number one genre that you do review? Is it romance, or what would the nonfiction sort of number one sort of genre be?
I guess it depends on who the audience is. Librarians love children's books and YA, especially YA. That's getting a lot of people into the libraries. Consumers, about the same thing. Children's and YA, also graphic novels. There's a huge influx, increase in graphic novels, increase in interest, increased sales, and it's becoming big business. Pretty much, almost all the graphic novel companies out there are almost by definition indie, even though they're becoming huge in and of themselves. But graphic novels are getting very popular. especially on our website.
That's cool.
And romance has its own sort of cult following, and just hugely devoted following. And we've got some great romance reviewers who understand the genre and all the nuances, and aren't just going to dismiss it all as bodice rippers or whatever. There's this whole language that fans of romance novels have that are sort of understood by other romance writers, and so we get that, and those are pretty popular too.
Great. If I'm planning to publish a book within hold on, my scroll thing keeps going moving on me. If I'm sending a book targeting my city only, should I still send it out to the reviews online? Do the book reviewers only want books that apply to everyone?
Well, yeah, we can still evaluate it. It's worth as a local book. Say your local historical society comes up with the history of your town. We've done a lot of those before, and we have reviewers who love that kind of thing. We will say in the review that it's of interest to people who are interested in that town or in that genre or that era of history, something like that. But yeah, that's fine. We do review those too.
So one of the questions I see here that I can respond to is, can you update IngramSpark metadata for your book as often as you want, and are all the updates sent out immediately? So the answer to that is yes, you can. You can update your metadata whenever you need to, and it does get updated immediately into the Ingram catalog, and from there it goes out to our retail partners, and it's up to those retail partners to update their own sites, and sometimes that can take a week, sometimes it can take 3 weeks, so it's up to them to kind of do that. So I would say give yourself a month to make sure that those updates kind of percolate out into all the various independent sites. That's a great question.
We have one more here, it looks like, which is great because we're just about out of time. I think it's just a little bit more clarification around that timeline. So they're asking if their book is going to be published within 2 months, is it too late to submit at that point?
No, it's not too late, especially after the new year when we're going bi-monthly. That's a good time schedule for us. And we'll make occasional exceptions too. I don't want to say that too loud, but if we're excited about a book and we're close to the pub date, we'll do it anyway. But 2 months is fine.
Well, thank you, Howard. We love Foreword. We love Clarion. We love all the work that you do on behalf of indie authors, and just feel like you're the sort of the standard bearer for the entire industry. So we really appreciate you, and thank you for being with us today.
Yeah,
thank you, Robin. It was fun.
Thank you both for your excellent information. Hopefully everyone enjoyed today's webinar and got some valuable information out of it. Keep in mind you'll be getting an email in the next couple of days with the recording and some additional resources. And always, keep posted on our social media and our website for additional information on all of the self-publishing tactics and the journey. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next month.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.